Hey guys, my Saw Iceberg video has been popping off recently, even though I uploaded it 3 months ago. So now is as good of a time as ever to make a Saw video, especially with the 10th installment, Saw X, coming out next month. But what do I do instead of an iceberg? Why not rank all of the films from worst to best, since I've seen every film in this franchise and have watched the first 7 many times before? I won't waste all your time. So what is the worst Saw film in my opinion? Honestly, I think you all expected Jigsaw to be the worst rated Saw film, and for good reason. It was inevitable that Saw was going to come back after the original series of Saw movies came out, but you brought it back for this? A movie that basically just copies every other movie in regards to the story, but with different characters involved in the main plot. Oh, and apparently the main trap of the movie takes place before the first Saw movie, but coincidentally 10 years after John Kramer died, and the yet another twist villain Logan is copying this specific Jigsaw trap with criminals from Detective Halloran's failed cases with the end goal of getting to Detective Halloran. Was that a mouthful? Yeah, it fucking was for me too. But guess who was the person that was John's first apprentice? Yeah, this guy that took a snooze during the original trap, which ended up being Logan because John decided to save him. But why was Logan in the trap? It's because he accidentally mixed up John Kramer's X-ray. There are also so many things that come up in this movie, such as this red-headed chick being a huge Jigsaw fan that absolutely goes nowhere. The furthest that plot point goes is that Logan shows her where the original trap takes place, as Detective Halloran interrupts them and she just runs away after Logan fights the detective. Also, what's that about Jigsaw not killing people? Does that apply to Logan? Fuck no, he doesn't. He just decides to snipe Edgar and frame it as Detective Halloran by using the same caliber bullet that he does. I could ramble on for days about how extremely lazy this movie is and how it's just made for money, but I have other films to talk about. Before we get into the next film though, I want to do something interesting. With each Saw movie I talk about, I do want to talk about my favourite trap in each of those movies. So what is it for this movie? Honestly, the spiral trap is my favourite here. It's a bit bizarre that the guy he sold the bike to was apparently John's nephew, but as the trap goes, it's quite a cool design and implements the fact that the brake was faulty on the bike he sold to the guy in a very smart way in this trap by making the brake the only way out of the trap. Otherwise he gets sliced up, and he does. So what movie's next? This might be a bit surprising that this movie's as low as it is, but this movie has the same issues as Jigsaw, but obviously not as bad. A predictably lazy twist villain. Well, at least this time it isn't yet another apprentice to John Kramer, but a guy that wants to take down corrupt cops by putting them through tests like Jigsaw, because of Chris Rock's ex-colleague Pete gunning down his dad when he was just a witness to the crime. One thing that's extremely strange is how Zeke, Chris Rock's character, is the only non-corrupt cop in this town. But also, what a coinky-dink that the only death we don't see of a cop is the one that turns out to be the twist villain. But as the whole film goes, it's just extremely mediocre with some cool traps and some cool deaths. But I will give Chris Rock some credit, as he does seem like he's giving it his all, and there's clearly a passion from this man that he really wanted to make a Saw film. Obviously, he ended up getting his own Saw film, but instead of doing something really different with the franchise in regards to the story and twists, the film just decided to change the killer a bit with getting rid of Tobin Bell's iconic voice for a laughably bad computer-generated voice, and change the villain's motivations. My favourite has to be the subway trap where Marv Broswick is on a stepladder with his hands wrapped in barbed wire as his tongue stuck into a metal trap. It's quite a simple trap, but I think it's quite effective, and it's kind of funny that Marv got the worst case scenario with this trap, as he rips his tongue out right before he gets hit by the train. Feels bad, man. Man, the more I watch this movie, the less I like it. The best thing is hearing this calling from All That Remains halfway through the credits. Such a great song. But anywho, the film itself mainly follows the most infuriating Saw character, Jeff, as he goes through his tests. Very slowly. But whilst he's going through his test, Jeff's wife is forced to operate on John Kramer as Amanda puts a shotgun collar on her, and if John's heartbeat stops or she tries to run away, the collar will go off. Honestly, the most annoying thing about this movie is just seeing Jeff slowly go through the traps in the movie, and with every trap he's just contemplating saving them for half of it, and then ends up being too late to save them. Except for the judge, which ends up being a waste anyway because of this. Instead of the twist being yet another apprentice, the twist in this film is that the test is for Jeff's wife, and also is a test for Amanda, as John knew that she'd been rigging traps by making them non-escapable and going against what John was out to do. It isn't the worst twist, but then again, why would Amanda kill Troy? I get why she would kill Detective Carey as she was getting in the way, but what the fuck was Troy gonna do against them? He wasn't a threat at all. Also, was it necessary that Amanda finished off Adam by making him suffocate? No. Yeah, I thought so. No surprise at all, but my favourite trap is the rack. It's a really cool trap for the man that was responsible for killing Jeff's son, but it's also quite disturbing the fact that each limb twists one by one until Timothy's neck twists all the way around, killing him. Even with the fact that Jeff or the judge could have just cut the wires and freed Timothy from the trap, it's neat to see what this trap can actually do, and it's disturbing. Saw 4 is basically the opposite of Saw 3 because this movie's fast paced compared to Saw 3 being slow as fuck. I do prefer this movie because it doesn't feel like it drags like Saw 3 does, but then again, it's a bit stupid why Rig was being tested compared to Jeff in Saw 3 where it makes sense why he's being tested. Wasn't it because Rig tries to save everyone? If that's the case, that is extremely fucking stupid. But this movie has some insane scene transitions. I'm glad that this movie doesn't have a character that I actually hate following throughout the movie, but I really don't have too much to say about this movie. My favourite trap here is the bedroom trap. Surprisingly, this film doesn't really have many good traps, but this one kind of takes the cake. Even though the guy in this trap is an absolute moron by just letting one eye get stabbed instead of doing both at the same time, Ivan was put into the trap for a very good reason as he forced himself onto at least 3 women, and at the end where you get to see his limbs flying off is really well done and it honestly looks great. That's one thing I will say is very consistent throughout all the Saw movies is that the practical effects and the makeup are actually pretty well done. This movie is similar to Saw 4, but Peter Strum is a better character compared to Rig. It's interesting to see more of Hoffman being the new Jigsaw killer after the reveal at the end of the last movie, but in this movie we see Hoffman trying to get Peter out of his way as Peter's trying to find out who the Jigsaw killer is and expose them. Hoffman's at his best as a character in this movie before he just becomes a straight up serial killer in Saw 6 and Saw 3D, where he does rig some traps to get rid of people that he wants out of his way, but he still makes some traps that are survivable for others. The main trap of this movie is extremely average with the 5 people going through the different rooms as one person dies in each room until they have to sacrifice 10 pints of blood with 2 people left. Throughout the movie, seeing how stupid the characters act is really annoying, but I guess that's the point since the twist at the end of this movie is that they all could have survived, and if all 5 are alive they don't have to give up 2 pints of blood each. The absolutely stupidest thing is just leaving this one guy to die by the nail bombs, even though there's plenty of room for all 5 of them to fit into the chambers that were unlocked. As impressive as the water cube is in this movie and the fact that they did it practically, I think you all know what the best trap in this movie is by far. Obviously, it's the glass coffin trap. To see what this trap is actually meant for after it was teased in the last movie is pretty satisfying, especially with the end result being Peter Strum being squashed by the walls closing in on him. The sound effects of Peter being squashed by the walls does the trap favours, and it sounds disgusting, but it really sells you on the fact that he's actually being squashed like a pancake by these walls, and it's excellent. Bloody and brutal, but it's not too brutal where it's just plain disgusting. Saw 3D is probably the dumbest movie out of all the Saw movies, but I love it because of that. The movie doesn't take itself seriously and just gives the fans what they want with some gory traps, especially seeing the reverse bear trap in action. Woo! Yeah, baby! And of course, Dr. Gordon coming back and being John's apprentice. I will say that Gordon being an apprentice is the most believable out of any of the apprentices as to why they would help John Kramer out, but it's kind of bizarre that Gordon's family completely disappears. I will say it is a big surprise that a musician like Chester Bennington is actually a good actor, because for the little screen time he has, he does a pretty good job. One thing that I will mention is that the 3D absolutely sucks ass, but the advertising around the 3D gimmick of this film is hilarious. Please make this a meme, and thank you. Most of the traps in this movie aren't actually great, but a standout is the silent circle. It's an excellent idea for a trap where you have to fish a key out of her stomach whilst not being too loud, otherwise if you're too loud you die. The movie does this really well, and the trap itself looks really cool, even with the weirdly coloured blood aside. This movie's gone up for me a lot in the past few years. I used to be on the opinion of this being one of the worst Saw movies, but that just isn't true. Realistically, looking at this movie, it goes the right direction after the first film was a big hit by making the second one bigger in scale with bigger traps, more characters, and obviously bringing in the staple, which is the plot twist villain. This movie takes place right after the first movie, but we follow Eric Matthews, which is played by the less well-known Wahlberg, Donnie, as he tracks down John Kramer and interrogates him as the main trap takes place. Or does it? Well, no. The plot twist is that the video footage of the trap is pre-recorded, and that his son that was actually in the trap is actually in a safe and was freed after 3 hours was up. But honestly, with this movie, it's just a fun movie, even with some of the characters being dumbasses, especially at the start with the revolver door. I do have to say that the death mask takes the cake for me. It's very similar to the reverse bear trap, but it takes a lot more inspiration from the Iron Maiden, but just for his face. I will say that it seems absolutely insane that he has to fetch a key from behind his eye. But when you see it in the Saw video game, it actually makes a bit more sense on how you'd actually get the key. But this trap's just a really good start to the movie, and I don't think any of the other traps are better than this one in the movie. Yep, the one with Roderick in it is the second best. Kill my father, you motherfucker! This is the best Saw movie that doesn't take itself seriously because, let's be honest, it's a fun movie. Also, the trap at the start of the movie really gets you in the mindset of what to expect, where a skinny woman's up against a fat guy in cutting off body parts to put the most weight on the scale. There are a bunch of dumb things in this movie, such as the oxygen crusher where the other guy gets put into a saw trap for smoking. Yeah, that's right. Don't fucking smoke. But it's just a very fun movie with a lot of good traps in it where we kinda get to see the reverse bear trap going off with Hoffman, but he actually manages to escape it by jamming the mechanism with the bars on the door. Very smart. I bet that there's no surprise that the shotgun carousel is the best trap in this movie. It's very straightforward, but William can only save 2 people from getting shot by the shotgun by pressing the button. Just watching the main character making choices on who he will save is great, and the fact that he doesn't want to make the decision on who lives and who dies is well done. But visually, the trap is really cool as well. Wowee! What a surprise that this movie's at the top. This movie's lightning in a bottle, and it was extremely smart considering that James Wan and Lee Whannell both didn't have much money to make this movie. But really, what is there to say about this movie that hasn't been said? Sure, this movie isn't perfect because some of the acting and plot points are questionable, but this movie really showed that people can make good horror movies even without a big budget. The only horror movie before this with a small budget that did well was the Blair Witch Project, and that movie intentionally made it look low budget compared to this where they tried to do as much as possible with how little they had. Without this movie, both James and Lee wouldn't have the careers that they do, and it's great seeing Aussies getting into the film industry and actually being successful because if you know the Australian film industry, it's basically non-existent. But do you really need me to say my favourite trap in this movie? Obviously, it's the reverse bear trap, even though you don't see what actually happens when it goes off, but it's absolutely iconic. It's obviously extremely satisfying to see it go off in Saw 3D where it kills Jill Tuck, but just the design of the trap alone is excellent and it looks extremely believable for a homemade machine used to kill someone. So fellas, I really hope you all enjoyed this video where I went back through the Saw movies and ranked each of them from worst to best and talked about the movies themselves. It was definitely fun watching these movies again and actually getting my thoughts together on what's the best and what's the worst Saw movies. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed the video, make sure to comment your thoughts down below what you thought about the video and what your personal ranking would be, and also subscribe if you enjoyed my videos obviously. Also, I'm sorry that I haven't uploaded a video in about a month now, it's because I'm working a full-time job now and that's taking up like 90% of my time. And also the fact that I got writer's block was really hard on me, like I didn't know what to do with this channel. But now I'm at the point where I know what I want to do with the channel, I know what I want to do in the future with this channel, so I'm going in that direction obviously and pushing that way. But I will say getting videos out is going to be much harder, obviously because I do have the full-time job. I will try and get at least a video out a month, but videos will still be uploaded at the same time like usual, Friday 11 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time. Anyways, it's time for the shoutouts. Alright, massive thanks to Ash Crimson for supporting my channel license tier. And lastly, massive thanks to Fatima and Victoria Huntley for supporting my Big Boss tier. If you want to find out how you can get my videos early, make sure to sign up to my YouTube memberships by clicking the join button, or make sure to sign up to my Patreon, which the link is in the description. Anyways, I'll see you on the next one.